John Redgrave here. How does being on the road compare for you guys when it comes to your preparation on a weekly basis versus being at home in your church, in your own community, where you get to do worship and music together? What does the difference look like for you guys?
You can find a lot of correlations between the two, but you can also they sort of take completely different forms at the same time. So it's hard to, for instance, we have a daily sort of prayer time, we read a bit and sort of together as a whole tour set our hearts and minds straight right before the show. And so that kind of becomes our corporate time. And obviously we're on a bus and a motorhome together, and so there's that communal, you're not getting away from anyone, you're doing life together, you're a family, just as you have at home. And then also, a lot of times we'll try, and Luke's got his son out with him right now, we'll try and bring family on the road. So all those things are kind of the big similarities. My parents are here, etc. It is different, but once you get out here, you realize that you can have a semblance of sanity on the road.
You've been on Winter Jam before. How would you compare that tour with your current tour right now for You Matter?
Usually we don't really have any support acts. We play for an hour and a half. We're on our own bus, all those types of things. Winter Jam is crazy because it's fast and furious. I mean, we'll go to, I think, 45 cities.
But 9 other bands.
There's 9 other bands. So it's a totally different, it's just a totally different thing. When you do your own shows, all those people are there because of a song that you've written that has really impacted their lives. At Winter Jam, you might have 15% of the people that are that way, but then you've got other people there that don't really know who you are. And there's actually something really nice about both things. Obviously doing your own concerts and your own shows is incredibly encouraging. You get to see and hear so many of the stories of people saying, you have no idea how, you wrote that song and it's become like my life story. But then even when you go out on Winter Jam and you have people that say, man, I don't know who you guys are. I may have heard one of your songs on the radio, but I didn't know that was you guys. I just wanted to say that, I love what you're doing, and you get to build new relationships. So really they're just both very, very different, but both are fantastic things to be a part of.
Well, let's take it back a little bit to, in general, when you're both brothers, how did this part of your career, how did music come into your life? How did you say, this is a ministry, and I feel like this is something our family needs to do together? Just how did that form?
We've always said that we want to write music about the human experience, that we want to write music about life. And if you could sort of take a year of our respective lives and the highs and the lows and everything in between, that's what we write about. Naturally, God, our wives, Luke had struggled with illness this last year. All of those things have been themes that have sort of run into our new album, for sure.
Well, to go into that, when you're looking at the writing perspective, and for people like myself, worship leaders who find themselves in the writing and looking to kind of perfect that skill and craft, how have you guys perfected that, and how have you used your story and what God is doing in your lives to dissect it through words?
I always think that music is a funny thing, because obviously there's a natural ability that God gives you a gift in. But like any gift, you have to allow it to grow and mature. And the way that you allow it to grow and mature is you just do it all the time. One of the best things, one of the best things that a lady who signed us to our publishing deal, she said before we got signed, she said, I really love what you guys are doing. Go write 100 songs. And at first we're thinking, oh, she loves what we're doing, and then you hear the 100 songs part, and you're going, so what are we missing? And it was funny, as we went away, and I think we wrote 120 songs before our first album was complete. Wow. And obviously songs come from the heart, songs come from what God's doing in your life, but songs also come from seeing how people respond to messages, how people respond to your stories, how people respond to what God's doing in your life that you share with them. And then you have people come up to you and say, hey, you shared that story, that meant so much to me. And you'll be amazed at how all of those things come into songs.
So how would you say in those tough times, if you're being diligent and going straight to the bus and writing, what about those days where you're just tired? How do you find yourselves pushing through those moments?
I would say, honestly, it probably happens 50% of the time you are tired.
And you don't want to.
Yeah.
I think that's the classic misconception of creativity, is that because it's labeled creativity, you all of a sudden think that you should only be creative when you're inspired. And that is, in our experience, that's a fallacy. If you actually put yourself in the environment and are disciplined about putting yourself in the environment, even when you don't feel like it, and you kind of act your way into creativity, it will find you. So the other thing that I've heard, we had this written on the wall of the first studio we worked in, and the statement was, judgment and creativity are two functions that can't occur simultaneously. And what that means is when you come in and you write a song, you leave judgment at the door. So you know what, I'm going to step into this, I'm just going to be creative. And then after a few days you come back and you re-examine. But when I get myself into mischief in a writing session, and Luke has been privy to this 1,000 times, is when I come in and I'm trying to be creative and I'm trying to use judgment at the same time, and you just can't do it.
Let's move to your current album. How is it unlike anything that you guys have created?
Well, I think just the way that it was created forces the music to be unlike anything you've ever created. You know, the first album, you know, you have 5-6 years to write it.
And
you know,
we were at home.
You're at home.
Time,
you got no pressures. You know, I was just married, didn't have any kids. You got much more time, and so you create a certain album that way. You know, the second album, you're touring like crazy. You're doing, you know, we're doing Christmas tours when you're meant to be kind of having time off. You're doing all these different things. And so I think that was, in a way, a very beneficial thing to us.
If you were talking to a worship leader, an artist, who deals with all the struggles of just being burnout, being a leader to your group, as you are to your crew and the people that you're on the road with and your family, what would be something that you could say to them that, you know, based on your experience that you've walked through, how could you give them just a little bit more energy to just hold on and to keep pressing forward?
Don't avoid the tension, embrace the tension. Embrace really doing life with people. Embrace everything from egos to insecurities, to the people that have barely anything to offer, to the people that have the most to offer. Like, embrace them and work with them and put your arm around them and serve them and embrace that tension. You have to, in the process, I mean, we just taken 3 days off, and I gotta tell you, I feel like a different dude. And Luke can probably attest to this. Like, I feel like a different dude than I did 4 days ago. You will be better for your team. You will be better as a writer. You will be better as a leader if you recharge. And then obviously, I think the final thing, and I don't know if you have anything to add to it, but I would just say, you got to stay connected to God. Particularly if you're leading people in this music that is directed vertically.
This has been a wonderful experience that Joel and I have had as artists, and as things have grown and changed. But it's also been some of the hardest times of our lives. We've heard it said in the Bible that when we are weak, He is strong. And I think just because things are difficult and hard doesn't mean that God can't work incredible miracles.
Well, thank you guys for being with us, and we look forward to
No worries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Johnny.
It's been a pleasure.